Hello, good afternoon. In our critical concepts series, we will deal with a very important concept, namely governmentality. Well, many of you may have already guessed governmentality or governing oneself is a remarkable framework developed by French thinker Michel Foucault. Okay, what I will do with this is I will, in the first lecture today, I will run through Foucault's contribution to governmentality through various means, and in the second half of the lecture today, I will run through governmentality's role in disability studies. Okay, and then perhaps we can have one or two more lectures to elucidate the usefulness of governmentality for literary disability studies. So this is the framework. This is the pattern that we are up to in our lectures today. All right. Okay. Foucault, as I told you, is a remarkable French thinker, superstar. Still a superstar. He was one of the early ones to die from HIV/AIDS in early 1980s. He was a homosexual, mad, a rebel, and so on. So, although he was a superstar in his time, and later on, even now, during his time, he was tormented so much from inside because he was very self-reflexive, and he did not neatly fit anywhere. I mean, let me explain that. About theory, Foucault himself says, I follow theory in an experimental sense. I consider myself more as an experimenter than a theorist. I don't develop deductive systems to apply uniformly in different fields of research. When I write, I do it above all to change myself and not to think the same thing as before. Well, think about a research paper maybe I would like to write. I just want to prove that somebody is an ableist writer, and then I go with that assumption and then write something. Throughout the research paper, I gather evidences to that effect and close the paper. Well, that writer may be an ableist writer, maybe ableist orientation, but nevertheless, if you go with an assumption about something and stay that just to prove that, then it is still a weak way of, still not a fully ethical enterprise. That's how Foucault would see it. I've never been a Freudian, I've never been a Marxist, and I've never been a structuralist. You see? So it's hard to pin him down to one particular thing. And we are dealing with that kind of thinker when we are talking about a framework such as governmentality. Okay, right. What does governmentality entail? Let's start there. Well, government, we know government is a position of authority, an administrative setup. People create so that that administrative system can you know, see to that the rule of law and some order prevails, Hobbesian control over things. Otherwise, things will be in chaos without government. Right. So, but there are many situations where the government or governing need not come from above. It can come from inside, from you, me, and among us. It can be a productive force. It need not be a negative system that controls me, but a very positive, affirmative force that you and I can be governed. In many ways, Foucault is exploring this throughout his career. His doctoral thesis on history of madness was a starting point, and he never stopped with his curiosity on governmentality. Okay, let us deal with it further. Subjectivity was his important notion. You know, what is subject? Myself inside. I am him, and I am made up of a person inside. My body seems to host it. If I go even further religious, maybe I host my body as a temple of God, in which soul resides. I am a rounded person covered with a skin, and so on. I have a boundary, I have dignity, I have inherently there are nothing wrong or devious about these frameworks. Okay, but Foucault is thinking beyond self and subjectivity. In a sense, he wants he's seen subject as creations of discourse, meaning conversations, ideas, and isms that make us. For example, suppose I call myself a teacher, then I have certain notions of teacher in my head. I have certain orientation about being a teacher. Okay, so if somebody calls oneself a teacher, they don't have just an empty universal idea in mind. The idea that person is a teacher is rooted pretty much in their historical and social context. Okay, so in other words, Foucault would say your sense of subjectivity is not based on a personhood that you host inside or an inviolable self that you host inside, but it's based on ideas, notions, frameworks, discourses that do the round. Okay, so thinking uh, um, beyond the self and the subject is what Foucault is interested, how you are influenced and how you yourself become the source of influence of those ideas and so on. Right, so that is where a governmentality comes. Before coming to that word, let me also say something more about beyond subjectivity. So I am saying influence and you are the source of influence and so on. When we talk about that subjectivity, he also talks about power. Okay, power, Foucault's view of power is very dynamic. Okay, he does not mean power as a force of repression. Okay, take for example me and my student. Well, I mark my student, I give marks to them, and I grade them. I select certain certain lessons and not others. You know, I want silence in the classroom and so on. So there is some kind of crude power, some kind of well, I'm walking in. You all should maintain silence because it's a classroom, and so on. So that kind of he's not talking about that power. He's talking about power in everyday life. It's not about coercion. It's not about aggression. It's not even about, uh, unruly things that people do to each other. It's not about a system's power over us. For example, university authority they have power over students and teachers. Um, uh, the ruling government in a state has lots of power over citizens through police, law, and so on. But he's not concerned about the way these things, these arms of the state, can be used to exercise immediate power by way of suppression and repression. But he's talking about subtle forces of power that circulate between you, me, others, and everyone. Okay? Does that mean he's vague? No, not at all. He's saying, okay, violence has a way to power, but that is not the only way. Even in peace, even when people are in love, even during most benign situation, there is power, and power is a productive force. It need not be always negative. You have to be careful, observational, vigilant, and cognizant of it. That is all he is trying to say. Okay, let me say his list of things where he says people have mistaken things to be what they call power. According to Foucault, uh, the mistaken notions of power, well, it's not mistaken. It's about what he called juridico-discursive power, meaning juridical, law, basically in our social and cultural structure. For the rule of law, law is law is kind of paternalism. It rules through diktat. It is considered universal. It is uniform, and so on. But that's not how it works. Okay, it is true that law is there, police and everything, but the way this rough, crude power, things like law works, they are through subtle ways. You rule yourself through like what? Things like taboo and censorship and so on. And that is why we need to understand what kinds of categories of power Foucault is pointing us to think about. He has three kinds of notions about power. One is sovereign power, then disciplinary power, and then biopower. Okay, sovereign power. Okay, consider a pyramid. Top of the pyramid sits king or a ruler. In the middle, ministers and educationists, intelligentsia, elite club, and so on. At the bottom are common people. Okay, so the assumption is the diktat comes from above and everybody below follows. Okay, Foucault says in the pre-modern period, when monarchies were prominent, then there was sovereign power. King had right to say anything. Suppose he is unhappy with my teaching style, for all you know, that person can kill me, give a death sentence. Oh, you are a moron. You teach, wrong ideas to young people. Can be killed. You can go. Well, has that sovereign power gone completely? According to Foucault, he says yes, but thinking about Foucault in the 21st century, we can say sovereign power, the pre-modern impulses, they have not yet fully disappeared. Think about Guantanamo Bay, think about law, piece of laws like the Gundas Act and many more, where or even sedition law, people can, it is entirely possible that somebody invokes that by whim and put somebody in the bar. It's entirely possible. Right. Disciplinary power. This is where the notion of Panopticon comes into business. What is disciplinary power? Well, let's put it this way. I wear certain kinds of brands of clothes. I fancy about going to certain kinds of disciplines. I want to get first rank. I want to present myself like this when I go for interview. I would like to pursue certain kinds of disciplines. Even in sciences, I would do certain disciplines as opposed to others. I would, present this kind of body language when I go on stage. When I am with my friends, I will display this kind of body language. Due to taboo and internalized oppression, women may be forcing themselves to wear dress, to wear costumes and so on in some particular way. Maybe there is a notion of shame, dignity, and many more ideas that determine how they want to, present themselves. So, what is happening here? There are knowledge systems that come to govern you from your heart, your mind, your affectations, your friendships, your stature as a student, teacher, child, adult, elderly, and so on. Right? So, they govern you and you make them govern yourself. And you perpetuate those ideas by spreading them to others, by having expectations of others to behave in certain way, and so on. So that is what you call disciplinary power. So using Bentham's idea, Foucault called this also panoptic power. Panopticon. Panopticon was is an architectural arrangement. Okay, just look at me. Suppose there are prison cells at the bottom. Okay, the panopticon image will be is appearing for you from the background, but let me explain. It's prison cells, and in the middle there is a tower. On top of the tower sits a watchman, or assumed to be. The thing is, the prison cells, prisoners are there, and they have a window, and when they look up, they can see the watchtower above. Okay, and when they see watchtower, they also feel that the guy who is disciplining them is watching from above. Well, actually, they will think about the watching business, that even if that person is not there anymore, you see. So it's the thing is, in modern, think about the 21st century. We have Facebook, we have active internet, we have mobile phones, we have different kinds of surveillance technology, including the CCTV and so on. So sometimes I used to wonder how on earth somebody my browser knew that I was looking for a pair of shoes. I would be browsing about a pair of shoes today, but next day I will get a pop-up on my machine. This kind of brand shoes is available for this much amount of money. How did they know? That is because our net and so on, they have become sources of surveillance, and there is data mining happening everywhere. So it is not just a 21st century phenomenon. It happened all the time. It's just that I'm using this example to show that how things work now in terms of disciplinary power. Right. So, so what is Foucault alerting us to now? Disciplines is what we are. There is nothing called discipline out there, and we somehow fit into it as first group, second group, third group people. It's not as like that. Discipline gets the shape through us, and it is us who shape what discipline is. And disciplines in a broader sense of the term, it could be physics, it could be military, it could be our training to become an academic, it could be our training to become parents, and so on. Okay? There is also, apart from sovereign power and disciplinary power, Foucault also talks about biopower. Yes, you guessed it right. Biology, life. Think about the following examples. Smoking is injurious to health. Okay. Unsafe sex causes HIV. Right. Now, the following the previous two sentences are, in some sense, government advertisements, and you see it on a cigarette box and so on. Inherently they are supposed to be, protecting citizens from, uh, premature death or even injury and so on, or even illness. Okay, but the point is this: ask these questions. How did people know that you know uh, smoking is injurious to health? There is statistical evidences, there is medical evidences, there is epidemiological calculations going on. You see? So, therefore, because of statistics, epidemiological surveys, medical knowledge that is spread around everywhere, now we know that certain kinds of population are a high risk, within quotation, category. So, somebody with diabetes, middle age, teenage, people being vulnerable to mental health conditions because of the mobile phone, people who use headsets a lot are vulnerable to hearing loss. That kind of statements, because they come as scientific truth, they have biopower, meaning uh, a systemic, a systemic influence over our life courses right from infancy to grave. Different kinds of truth we get influenced, and we also circulate them as agents. Suppose I have a friend and he smokes a lot, then I'm going to cite that advertisement, hey, smoke is injurious to health, don't try this, stop smoking. He's not saying that these are all negative. It's a way biopower works on us through statistics, diagrams, charts, flow charts. You remember Leonard Davis's bell curve on normalcy in the previous course. I strongly recommend that you watch my interview with Davis on that normalcy, where Davis does fantastic Foucauldian analysis to come with an idea of normalcy. Right. So now, where are we? See, to power, subjectivity, and so on. But in the end, what do I say about governmentality? Well, Foucault comes with the composite term. I call composite because they are translated together, power/knowledge. So, in a very simple way, as a concluding remark, power is not a repressive force. It is the way we conduct ourselves with each other as friends, learners, familial members, citizens, classmates, yoga mates, hostelers, and much more. You see, it is through that conducting we influence each other through power, and that power can be negative, positive, affirmative, promoting mutuality, desires, and so on. It is there in every action. So now, what do we do with it? And this power is the source of knowledge, and through that knowledge, power generates itself. It is a generative force. It is productive and no means a repressive entity. Right. What do we do with it? Well, being aware of it will make us flexible in our introspective method Two, by no means it is an overarching way of doing things. It is not deterministic. So some say Foucault is deterministic. He like Freudianism. It says, okay, it's all power. No, it's not that way. It is about being aware, being careful, being self-reflexive, and not being complacent. Right. In my next lecture, I will, walk through how Foucault's notion of power/knowledge, subjectivity, government, and so on, help us understand how self-governing or governmentality can be applied to disability studies, and how disability studies help us to understand governmentality better for the 21st century. That's it. Thank you.